Kalispera. Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. On behalf of the Board of Trustees of the American School of Classical Studies at Athens, and together with the Board of Overseers of the Gennadius Library, I want to welcome all of you tonight to our gala celebration. It is unfortunate that we cannot be together in person, but we are grateful that we could come together tonight as we celebrate and support the work of the American School of Classical Studies. It is a remarkable place. Founded in 1881, we are now the preeminent overseas research center, preserving, promoting, and protecting Greece's glorious past. When we are all able to travel again, we do hope you will come and visit our main campus, located in the Kolonaki section of Athens. And when in Greece, be sure to set aside time to visit our two main excavation sites as well. I'm speaking, of course, about the Athenian Agora and ancient Corinth. This evening, we have prepared for you a wonderful program. You will get a taste of various aspects of the school's work and also get to meet some of the people that are at the heart of the American school. The year 2021 brings with it a major milestone for us. It is our 140th anniversary. During that time, we have accomplished a great deal, but none of that would be possible without the dedicated staff, faculty, and students, both in Athens and in the United States, dedicated board members, the academic oversight of our 450-member managing committee representing over 190 universities in North America, as well, and very importantly, as the financial support of donors like you. Not to be forgotten, though, and of primary importance, is our long-standing relationship with the government and the people of Greece. Our work, quite simply, would be impossible without them. Once again, thank you for being with us, and we hope you enjoy our gala celebration.
Good evening, and thank you for joining tonight's celebration of the American School of Classical Studies in Athens. On behalf of the Greek government and the people of Greece, I want to say that it is an immense pleasure to participate in what is the 140th year of my country's partnership with this institution, the 5th year of your annual gala evening, and notably, the 200th anniversary of Greece's independence itself. I'm only sorry that we're having to meet virtually tonight. Greece has worked hard to weather the storm of the pandemic over the past year, and our people's natural resilience, coupled with a government focus on delivery, has served us well. This means that we will be able to open our doors again to international travelers this summer, with confidence. But it is important to know that life has not been put on hold over the past year. We have not allowed the pandemic to stop a government program of transformation and change. This includes the journey to digitizing the state, attracting foreign investors, and driving forward an ambitious plan around green energy, sustainability, and protecting the natural world. Alongside the protection of our natural habitats, we must continue to protect our cultural heritage, which is why I was so pleased to announce with Microsoft last year a program to bring the ancient city of Olympia to life using artificial intelligence and other technologies. This project will give people around the world the opportunity to experience this site as it was 3,000 years ago. Microsoft's contribution to building awareness and understanding of Greece's past is just the latest of such partnerships that build bridges between my country and yours. As you know, the Hellenic Republic has entrusted to the capable hands of our American colleagues two of our most important sites, the Agora in the heart of Athens and the ancient site of Corinth. The extensive excavation and historic preservation of these two major sites have enabled students and tourists alike to learn about our past. As the host country for the hundreds of American scholars, especially archaeologists and historians who have worked and studied here, we deeply appreciate their contribution, which shine a light on our history. And as someone who has studied in America at both Harvard and Stanford myself, I'm fully aware of the benefits of educational and cultural exchange. For me, my time in your country has also given me a deep love. We all know, of course, that the best cultural partnerships flow in both directions. In the case of the Hellenic-US relations, that process started back in 1922, when our esteemed ambassador, Ioannis Gennadios, gave his famous rare book collection to establish the Gennadios Library of the American School. Isocrates' words, carved on the marble facade of the building that bears Gennadios' name, states that they are called Greeks who share in our culture. That is as true today as it was back then. All these endeavors and more have benefited Greece. And as we continue to work together in the years to come, I wish for ongoing collaborations and new joint initiatives. May you enjoy this gala celebration this evening, and we hope to welcome all of you back to Greece very soon.
And it's such a pleasure for me to be here in the beautiful gardens of the Gennadios Library as we mark the beginning of the Gennadios Library's celebration of 200 years of Greek-American friendship and the Greek bicentennial. Educational institutions like the American School of Classical Studies are a big part of those people-to-people ties, so it was only natural that we would support the Gennadios Library's exhibition on American Philhellenism. And it's very fitting that 100 years after Ioannis Gennadios accumulated his collection around the time of the Greek centennial, we are coming back to this setting to put a special spotlight on the role of American Philhellenes. It's a story that's not well known in the United States or here in Greece, but it's so important to recognize the unique ties that bind our two revolutions. Our founders were explicitly inspired by the values of Athenian democracy, the work that John Camp and others have done to illustrate the role of the Athenian Agora is a daily reminder of how important those values were to what was Athens, but also the inspiration for our founders who read classical Greek texts, who studied the history of Athenian democracy and its breakdown in building our republic. And then 45 years later, when the Greek independence fighters lifted their flag, this became one of the first great foreign policy debates in the United States, as citizens in our young republic asked themselves, how can our democracy fulfill its purpose if Greeks are not able to achieve their own birthright of democracy and self-determination? So you had all these American Philhellenes coming from Boston, from New York, who traveled to Greece, provided some of our first foreign assistance in the form of humanitarian aid to the Greek independence fighters. And then these Philhellenic societies, which rose up across the United States, in Philadelphia, in New York, in Boston, helping to drive the debate in the United States about the Greek independence movement, and also inform our government, our young government's approach to the Greek War of Independence. So, and what was really unique about it, of course, the great powers of the day, Russia, the UK, France, played a decisive role in the Greek War of Independence. But their role was all informed by great power politics. Our involvement, America's involvement, was founded on values. And I think that continues to be the case today. The root of our relationship is our shared commitment to democracy, to rule of law, which is so important to both of our societies. So we're really proud of the exhibition, which will be opening next month here at the Gennadius Library. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait for museums in Athens to open again, which the government has indicated will happen at the middle of May. So thank you very much for letting me preview this exhibition with you. And please, once it's online, once it's in real life, please come see what the Gennadius Library is doing to tell the story of American Philhellenes and the ties between our two revolutions.
To mark the 200th anniversary from the Greek War of Independence, the Gennadius Library celebrates and honors the relationship between Greece and the United States in the century of revolutions. We are organizing an exhibition entitled The Free and the Brave. Our exhibition focuses on orators, on educators, on politicians and visionaries, but also, of course, on fighters and volunteers who left America to come to Greece and help the Greeks.
Until late in the 19th century, when the first waves of Greek immigrants reached the United States, Americans had never heard modern Greek being spoken. What is unique about these documents? They tell us the story of Nicholas Tsiklitíras, the grandfather of the famous athlete who was the supercargo of the merchant ship Jerusalem. The ship docked in Boston in November of 1813. Her arrival featured largely in the local newspapers as the first Greek ship to ever reach the United States. Many Bostonians flocked to the dock to see the ship. One of them, however, John Pickering, a lawyer and a linguist, came to hear the crew talk. Tsiklitíras, a native of Navarino, decided to stay in Boston for a few years and become a teacher and instructor of Greek, with Pickering as his first pupil. The four documents that once belonged to Tsiklitíras are fragments of language assignments and exercises that he gave to his erudite students, which in addition to Pickering included William Jenks, a professor of Oriental languages at Baldwin College, who was also reputed to have the largest private library in Boston.
Lord Byron's poetry and news about the atrocities committed by the Ottomans in the islands of Chios and Psara, and also in Messolongi, fueled sympathy among the Americans for the Greek cause.
The Greek Provisional Constitution of 1824 includes, in addition to the to the Greek constitution as formulated in the Assembly of Astros, the political constitutions of Great Britain and the United States of America. And this reflects the bonds, the connection between the Greek revolutionaries and the United States. These strong bonds become more apparent in the 22nd stanza of the Hymn to Liberty, which became the national anthem of Greece, where there is a reference to the free land of Washington.
The first to join the Greek War of Independence was the young George Jarvis, a New Yorker who came to Greece via Denmark and Marseille. Jarvis was a great fighter, and he joined the Klefts and soon became known under a Greek name, Kapetan Zervis. As he put it, Greece will be free or not exist. The most well-known of American Philhellenes was Samuel Gridley Howe, a Bostonian physician and abolitionist. Inspired by the speech that Lafayette gave at Harvard during his graduation in 1824, Howe left America to come to Greece, where he joined the Greek forces and served as chief surgeon in the Greek Navy. Howe was a visionary. Not only was he instrumental in distributing supplies and provisions to the Greek population, but he went further. He provided employment to Greek refugees, first in building the port on the island of Aegina, and then by establishing a model colony for Greek refugees near the Isthmus of Corinth in a town known as Examilia. His colony provided for 200 families of refugees and was named Washingtonia.
In the 1820s, Protestant Association from the United States organized and funded missionary expeditions as part of the spiritual movement of the Second Great Awakening. The goal of the missionaries was to, first of all, to convert Greek population to Protestantism and also to civilize by means of education. For that reason, they provided financial support, they founded schools, and also they founded printing press for the publication of books in Greek. The Philhellenic printing press from America was founded by Robertson and the couple Hill, who also founded a school in Athens for girls that is still in operation.
The library is fortunate to own a complete set of the 24 paintings commissioned by General Makrianis, depicting the important battles that took place from 1821 to 1829. However, the second painting in this series takes us back in time to 1453 and the city of Constantinople. In a kind of time warp, it represents the end of freedom for the Greek people and the beginnings of the struggle for freedom. At the far left is a smaller female figure pointing her finger at the Sultan. She is described in Makrianis' text as, quote, Greece shorn of her honor and her glory in shackles. Note the chains, her discarded weapons, and especially the galanolevko garment she is wearing, reminiscent of the newly adopted Greek flag. Another female figure, shorn of her honor, and definitely in shackles, is this statue, which was one of the most famous sculptures ever carved by an American artist. Entitled The Greek Slave, it was conceived by Hiram Powers in 1841 and depicts a beautiful, life-size nude girl with chains around her hands, turning her head away to the side. Here we are looking at a smaller scale version in a sparkling white ceramic ware, which is known as Parian, after the marble-producing Greek island of Paros. As the first famous nude statue by an American sculptor on public display, it of course attracted considerable attention. But by the 1840s and 50s, many literary, artistic, and critical responses to the sculpture linked it symbolically to the ongoing debate in America over slavery. How a marble statue like this of a Greek girl enslaved by the Ottomans came to inspire the abolitionist movement halfway across the world is an intriguing story. And I hope many of you can come to Athens and see for yourself this outstanding exhibition, The Free and the Brave.
Well, as you have seen, the new exhibit in the Ioannis Makrianis wing demonstrates a long-standing and close relationship between Greeks and Americans in the years leading up to the Greek War for Independence. Greeks were inspired by Americans' own struggle for independence from England. Americans, in turn, were very supportive of Greece's struggle for independence from the Ottoman Empire. And those two struggles had an impact on the struggle worldwide, but especially in the United States, to end slavery. But 1866 was not the end of the story. Since the founding of the American School of Classical Studies at Athens in 1881, members of the school have taken an active, in fact, a proactive role in supporting Greeks and Greeks generally, but especially during periods of great stress. And I'd like very briefly to highlight a few instances of this. In 1897, Harriet Boyd Hawes, who was the first woman of any nationality to direct a major excavation in Greece, dropped that work and rushed to Thessaly to serve as a nurse for the Greek soldiers who had been injured on the Lamia Larissa front in the war with Turkey. In 1919, school personnel served in the American Red Cross mission to repatriate Greeks who had been deported to Bulgaria during World War I. In 1940, after General Metaxas said "Ohi" to the Italian ultimatum, school alumni quickly raised funds to purchase an ambulance, which was driven by Rodney Young on the Albanian front until he himself was injured while bringing a Greek soldier back to a Red Cross station. In 1945 and 1946, the Greek War Relief Association, under the leadership of Oscar Brunner, provided food and clothing to Greek refugees from villages that had been burned during the German occupation. In 1948, T. Leslie Shear Sr. lobbied for the liberation of the Dodecanese Islands from Italy and their unification with Greece. In the early 1970s, our trustee and overseer Lloyd Coatson sailed a yacht into the harbor of Amorgos to rescue a political prisoner who was being held there by the junta. Most recently, students and staff of the school have provided food and clothing to the refugees, mostly from the Middle East, who've been passing through Greece on their way to Northern Europe. So there is a steady, continuous record of Philhellenism on the part of the school and its members over the past 140 years. And the Greek government has recognized this service by conferring decorations on many individual members of the school. In the 19-teens, Edward Capps, Bert Hodge Hill, Carl Blagan, William Bell Dinsmore, and Henry Dewing were decorated with the Order of the Redeemer. Since then, many school members have received the Order of the Phoenix, including Oscar Brunner, Benjamin Merritt, William T. Semple, Gertrude Smith, Louis Lord, Francis Walton, Lloyd Coatson, and Malcolm Weiner. And just last month, the Greek government announced that as part of its own celebration of the 200th anniversary of Greek independence, it would be conferring the Order of the Phoenix on Charles Williams, Jack Davis, Sharon Stalker, Sharon Gerstel, Donald Kagan, and Louis Ruprecht. The American School is very grateful for the opportunity that the Greek government has given us from the 19th century into the 21st century to explore Greece's past and to make it known to the wider world. This has been a great privilege, which we have tried to reciprocate as Philhellenes at key moments in the history of modern Greece. And we look forward to continuing that relationship in the future.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Athens. the home of the American School of Classical Studies. I first came here in 1970, and I've been coming back ever since. Because for me and many scholars, this is the best place to conduct research on the history and archaeology of Greece, both ancient and modern. But the campus has changed quite a bit since I was first here. For one, our two great libraries, the Blegen and the Gennadius, had additions put on with compact shelving. We have built a scientific laboratory for archaeology, thanks to the generosity of Malcolm Weiner. We have a beautiful lecture hall from which we disseminate lectures both locally and around the globe. And finally, we have this new Makrianis wing, which will be the home of our contribution to the 1821 bicentennial of Greece. Currently, we are in the process of renovating and have almost finished the residence hall across the street for our students and members. This was built 90 years ago, and it dazzled visitors with its hot and cold running water. Well, we'll still have hot and cold running water, but in addition, this really new building has elevators, air conditioning, and much more. So our members will be much more comfortable in this great new facility. And you can see that we are also cleaning up the outside by sanding down the columns so that they'll look sparkling new. Meanwhile, we've housed our students on campus, the 6 who have remained here to write their dissertations. This has been particularly challenging in a COVID year, but we wanted to do everything we could to facilitate their work. So they live on campus, and we give them meals in a sort of takeout packet cooked by our wonderful chef, Takis. So they're being well taken care of, and of course they have access to the library, particularly the Blegen Library, where the archaeology students are busily working on and writing their dissertations. I would say the biggest gain of the COVID year for the school is the amazingly wide global dissemination of our research. This has taken place in a series of webinars known as Live from Ancient Corinth, Live from the Agora, Byzantine Dialogues, and most recently, a series which looks at ancient Greek painting, a series of lectures by eminent scholars. We've done 43 of these webinars, and we've had over 300,000 viewers. This is a huge new initiative on the part of the school, and we're particularly indebted to Konstantinos Georginis, who's our brilliant videographer and producer of these programs. I hope you'll have a chance to look at them. They're all on our website, archived under the Video Archive tab, so you can find them and enjoy them at your leisure. Now we're going to head down to Corinth, the other major site of the American School, where we have been excavating for over 100 years and are continuing there to do not only excavation, but also, perhaps equally or more important, study of all the material that's been excavated during these decades and is now being published so it can be accessible to a wider world of scholars. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy your evening.
Hello, I'm Christopher Pfaff, the director of the Corinth excavations of the American School of Classical Studies. I'm speaking to you from the terrace at the back of the compound here at ancient Corinth. In front of me, I'm looking up at the citadel of Corinth, Acrocorinth, and behind me you can see the Gulf of Corinth, and over to my left is the noteworthy landmark of Corinth, the Temple of Apollo. Just down the hill from where I'm standing, about 100 meters away, is the ancient theater, used both in Greek and Roman times. And adjacent to this, along the road to the east of the theater, is an area that's now generating a lot of excitement. This is an area that was excavated by Charles Williams in the 1980s. and it is now the subject of intense study. One volume is in production and two others are on the way. But what has especially got us excited here at Corinth is a conservation project that is associated with the wall paintings that were discovered in a series of buildings along that road. These wall paintings date from the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, and they are really a unique collection for Greece. They are much more consistent with what we're accustomed to seeing at places such as Herculaneum and Pompeii, and they are now being treated by a team of Italian conservators under the direction of Roberto Nardi.
We are dealing with a huge collection of fragments of Roman paintings excavated by Charles Williams during the 80s. We are restoring 120,000 pieces, and we hope that we will be able to produce a collection of Roman paintings which will make an important reference for a museum.
The project is now advanced roughly a year, and we expect that the whole project will take about 5 years to complete. At the end of that time, we hope we will be able to exhibit these wall paintings and make them available to the public. So this is a project that we are quite interested in, both for the scholarly results that we hope to attain through the publications, but also through the wonderful wall paintings that we hope to make available to the public for display. In the near future, we certainly hope that those of you who are interested in Corinth and those who might be specifically interested in Roman Corinth, its arts, and especially wall painting, will take the opportunity to come visit us. We certainly look forward to seeing you all, and I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much.
Hello and good evening from the village of Kalives near Chania on the island of Crete. On behalf of the Board of Overseers of the Gennadios Library, it's a great pleasure to be part of this virtual celebration. Under the leadership of the Gennadios Library's director, Dr. Maria Georgopoulou, this past year has seen the launch of a number of exciting new initiatives as the Gennadios Library continues to fulfill the wish of our founding benefactor, Ioannis Gennadios, that the American School of Classical Studies should, and I quote, be a world center for the study of Greek history, literature, and art, ancient, Byzantine, and modern. To begin with, through the generous gift of Overseer Fokion Potamianos, the Gennadios Library has launched the Thalia Potamianos annual lecture series on the reception of Greek thought. The inaugural speaker will be best-selling author and professor of global history at Oxford University, Peter Frankopan, who will deliver 3 lectures entitled Global Greece, A History. The first lecture will be in Athens on October 7th, with lectures to follow in Washington, D.C. and New York in the spring of 2022. This autumn will also see the launch of a new postgraduate fellowship program with 3 new fellowships for the study of post-antique Greece. This has been made possible through the generous support of overseers Hionak Xantopoulou Schwartz and the Schwartz Foundation, and by Peter and Catherine Yatrakis. This marks the beginning of an academic program which we plan to continue growing as we broaden our research and outreach activities. Crises sometimes bring opportunities, and as a result of COVID-19, we accelerated the launch of what has proved to be an immensely successful series of webinars which have examined subjects as diverse as the adoption of Greek orphans by Americans during the Greek War of Independence, the unbuilt monuments to 1821, and the restoration of icons. If you haven't already done so, I would encourage you to explore our website as we add new and interesting material all the time. We also actively continue to build on Gennadios' original gift in 1922 of 26,000 books. Today, the Gennadios Library holds over 145,000 titles of rare books and bindings, research materials, manuscripts, archives, and works of art. Of course, we're always on the lookout for gifts and acquisitions that will help us grow our collections. We consider ourselves to be Ioannis Gennadios' successors, a responsibility we take very seriously. So, as soon as we became aware that his grave in London had fallen into disrepair, overseers of the Gennadios Library quickly funded the restoration of our benefactor's final resting place. This was not only our obligation towards him, but it was also a privilege to be able to honor his memory in this way. And now it's a great pleasure to welcome my fellow overseer, Professor Jack Davis, who will now introduce this evening's honoree, Professor Curtis Runnels. Over to you, Jack.
Hi there, Curtis. It's your old friend Jack in Athens, Greece, coming to you to congratulate you on this special occasion tonight. What I really can't believe, and excuse me for glancing down at my paper from time to time, is that I think it's been about 45 years since we were sitting talking archaeology in Bloomington, Indiana. No, maybe closer to five decades. And you really piqued my interest in the earliest prehistory of Greece. You inspired me to think about archaeology and presenting archaeology in a different way to a general public. And then you and Priscilla told me how to do it in your baby book about the Southern Argolid, a place that I know is still very dear to you both. But in addition, Curtis, I think you really changed the way that the world understands Greece in the course of your career in what is really an extraordinary range of publications and your unparalleled ability to communicate your ideas to audiences of every sort. And that's been recognized by many people with your teaching awards from the Archaeological Institute of America. Your research has not only had an indelible impact on the way archaeologists think about things in Greece, but elsewhere in the Balkans. And your stature in the field of classical archaeology is really such that I think there can be no doubt that you richly deserved the gold medal for achievement from the Archaeological Institute of America in 2019. And at the same time, you've enriched the lives of so many students. Not only your own students at Boston University, but those who have followed you into the field. But that's not why we're convened this evening to praise you, Curtis. We're not here to praise your archaeology. We're here to praise you as a bibliophile, which is something, an aspect of your career and life that's less well known. Your incredibly deep knowledge of the works of Heinrich Schliemann that led you to compile a hand list of his works. Your interest in the history of archaeology, but also the history of modern Greece, has made you such an amazingly valuable resource for the Board of Overseers of the American School of Classical Studies. To know you, Curtis, has always, for me, been to be captivated by your almost contagious enthusiasm. And I really remember the first time that I came to yours and Priscilla's new house outside Boston. And I discovered that you were really living inside a compact library. Even my bedroom where I was sleeping was full of rare books and manuscripts. And I remember sitting at your dining room table at the time, and you pulled out a box and you said, "Jack, I'll show you how to develop a collection." He says, "I just find things," you said, Curtis, "and throw them into a box. And let's see what we can find." And you opened the box and you started pulling out the most amazing treasures that astounded me. and I learned to do the same thing. I don't even know what I have these days, and I don't think you either do. I think you're going to this evening really enjoy the world premiere of this new film of the American School of Classical Studies, this short film entitled Curtis Runnels, Hellenic Scholar, Bibliophile, Benefactor. And I think all of you who are listening to this evening are going to find that Curtis, a great Philhellene, is a collector of a really special sort. Curtis revels in the hunt. He's inflamed with passion in the negotiation. He thrills in the acquisitions, and he is committed, exactly as was John Gennadius, to bringing your golden treasures home to Greece, where they're going to be safeguarded and offered to the public, in addition to the collections in our archives and in the Gennadius Library. Have a good evening, Curtis. We're very proud of you.
I've always liked books. They're beautiful things. The feel, the look, the smell, the touch. But what made me a collector of rare books was I was a graduate student at Indiana University, and a fellow graduate student was house sitting for a faculty member who was on leave. And I went in, and there on a shelf were books of the same kind I was looking at in the rare book library. And then it hit me. One could buy them just like any other book. That was what got me started. And then I started hunting for a favorite one. I found it, and I was hooked.
Hello, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah, this is the new acquisition shelves. I always like to look here because I never know what I'm going to discover. I found books from the 17th century, the 18th century, 19th century. Just don't know what you'll find here. I don't think I want to read this one, Treatise on Epidemic Cholera. And then I see, there's something nice. Some of the best artists designed these things, and collectors sometimes look for books that are designed by particular designers. And I've done the same thing. I've bought the book just because, like this, it's just so pretty. You know, who would not want a book like that? It's like looking for gold nuggets. You know, the gold rush where you're digging, and then suddenly something glitters, and you go, a bit of gold.
I went to a book fair, and I was talking to a bookseller. And down in a glass case, he had a Greek manuscript. And you just don't see Greek manuscripts. I looked at it, I really wanted it, my heart's beating loudly. Please let me be able to afford this book. He named a price, I paid it. And then he said something about the others in a box. And I didn't catch it at first. I was so excited with the book that I actually left the book fair and I went home. And then later that night I thought, box? What box? Well, the box ended up in my house, and as I reached in, started pulling things out, I began to find beautiful medieval Greek manuscripts. Somewhere around 1525, 1540, something like that, perhaps earlier. And it's just the sort of thing that is intended for the Gennadius Library because it needs research. You can see there's even manuscript writing here in these end papers. Do you see that? With dates and other information. You really have to be a specialist in these things. And, you know, a book collector loves the book, but doesn't always necessarily understand the book. This is a great rarity. An unknown traveler, I believe is English, made this sketchbook. A magnificent record of what the country looked like in 1874-75. And one of the most remarkable images in here, the equivalent of Airbnb in 1874, somewhere on the way to Nemea, they stopped at an inn. And here you see their riding gear, their weapons. They've got the fire going, cook some dinner, try to dry out before the next day's travel. January the 13th. No wonder he's sitting so close to the fire. And this is the sort of record that can help us to visualize the world as it was at a time that's now, of course, gone. John Gennadius, whose collection made up the core of the Gennadius Library and whose benefaction made it all possible, this is what he envisioned. But I will also benefit by seeing all of these going back home, back where it began its life and where it can join others and be studied by scholars who will be able to tell me much more about its travels through time.
The Gennadius Library is a place that is full with books that have a very special history because they've spoken to somebody who had the passion, the will, and the eagerness to look for something. They were chosen by a collector. There are genius collectors. Gennadius was one of them. He was looking for something very specific. And I think this is what makes a good collector, to know what you're looking for. In the case of our library, the word is Greece, Greek, Athens, Constantinople, Byzantium, or something of the sort. This is the foundation upon which other collectors have offered their personal collections, the heirlooms of their parents, of their grandparents. And of course, new materials come in because people want to find a good home.
What Curtis Runnels has been collecting fit very much to what both the archives of the American School and the Gennadius Library have been collecting so far. Documents that are related to the history of archaeology in Greece, to the history of the Greek nation. It's very important when the collector decides to donate to an institution with organized facilities. It's not only that we will provide safe storage for posterity.
All these precious items get a new life. They get energized because here they also are shared with the public. It finds a new home, a home that is open to all.
On behalf of the Board of Overseers of the Gennadius Library, it's a great privilege for me to present the 2021 Gennadius Prize to Curtis Runnels for his outstanding contribution to the advancement of knowledge of post-antique Greece. Congratulations, Curtis. Thank you for all you've done for the Gennadius Library and for the American School of Classical Studies at Athens.
I am delighted to be here, even if it is virtually, and I am also extremely honored to receive the Ignatius Prize for 2021. And I want to thank Andreas for his introduction, and of course to the Board of Overseers of the Ignatius Library for this great honor. And I'd also like to thank Jack Davis for remembering such a pleasant anecdote of time we spent together with our books. I was just thinking about my first trip to Athens and to Greece, which took place many years ago. And I remember on a sun-drenched afternoon making my way up for the very first time to Suevia Street, to the American School, to make my first entrance there to a body, an institution that I would have so much to do with in the rest of my career. And I knew about the school because my mentors at my university told me about it, but I didn't know about the Ignatius Library. I didn't know about the Ignatian. And as I paused at the gates of the American School, I think probably like many people before me, I turned and I looked up this hill across the street, and there was this magnificent building. And I remember crossing the street carefully and standing before the gates and looking up at the Ignatian thinking, this is different. There's something here special. Now, in that time, in that place, I had to move on. I had other things to do, and it would be a few years before I would really be able to follow up my question of what was that building. It was when I was a Fulbright fellow in Athens, when I was working on my doctoral dissertation, that I finally was able to go through those doors and spend time in the Ignatius. And like everybody who's done so, I was awed by the privilege of being able to see and use a collection of such magnificence that covered all those years after classical antiquity, the years of the modern Greek people, and taking us, of course, to the time of independence that we're celebrating now in its bicentennial. And as I studied those books, of course, I had to ask myself, who brought all these together? And as I learned about John Ignatius and his fabulous bequest to the American school and to the Greek people, I was always in awe. And as I became a book collector myself, I would like to say that it's not just the institution that I am so happy to be able to support and to be able to use, but it's also the man that I am interested in, the book collector, the person who spent so much time, so much of his resources, so much of his energy to amass a collection that today is simply could not be reproduced. He specially collected things that are of such rarity that even today a collector with means would be unable to obtain. It was a tremendous sacrifice on his part at many times in his life and career to make these acquisitions. And of course, like all book collectors, I can testify handing them over, as I am doing now, to the Ignatius Library can be almost a painful parting with old friends. And I identify with John Ignatius. I admire John Ignatius. And I want to take this time not only to thank everybody who has been responsible for this award and for this honor that I'm receiving, but also to draw people's attention, as it should be, to John Ignatius and how we must never forget his fabulous philanthropy and his marvelous contributions to scholarship, to the country and the people he loved, and ultimately to all of humanity, because as all book collectors, I have taken an interest in the great libraries of the world. I've visited those that I've been able to reach, and I am always grateful to the people who had the foresight to gather these materials and put them together. And it makes the library that John Ignatius bequeathed to the Greek people and is cared for so diligently by the American School of Classical Studies at Athens
one of the great libraries of the world. And I never miss a chance when I'm talking with my fellow book collectors and with antiquarian book enthusiasts of all stripes to tell them about the Ignatius, which is less well known than some of the other specialist libraries in the world today. But with the guidance of the overseers and with the expertise and energy and foresight of its director and its longtime staff, this library is poised to become better known than it's ever been in all of its more than 100 years of existence. And I am so honored to be a small part of that and to be with you here tonight, even if it's only through this virtual medium. So thank you all, and good night.
Thank you, Curtis, and congratulations. Tonight, as we celebrate you, we wanted to do something special. I remembered when we had met, you had shared with me that you collect things sometimes without knowing precisely what they are. And when you gift them back to the Ignatius Library, you do so knowing that others might come in with more knowledge on a certain subject matter and study the items and talk about them. Well, as it turns out, I myself was at the Ignatius Library and asked about your collection. And I was amazed to see that you actually located rare handwritten Byzantine music manuscripts. Now, for those that aren't aware, Byzantine music is liturgical music written for the Orthodox worship. The notation itself is much different than Western music, and actually to be able to read and chant it, you really need to spend years studying. How do I know this? Because I'm a chanter myself, and I could not believe my eyes when I saw what you found. And as I stood there in the Ignatius, looking at this manuscript, I thought to myself, who was the last person that had this book in their hands? Who did it belong to? And then I thought, and who's the last person to actually look at it and know how to read it and bring it to life? And then I thought to myself, Curtis, you may have found and purchased these books and donated them to the library, but I bet you had no idea what this sounded like. So tonight, to honor you this evening, we have decided to bring one of the books you discovered to life. To make this possible, it's my pleasure now to introduce from the Ignatius Library, Arkon Protopsaltis, and my professor of Byzantine music, Fotis Kezedzis.
Oh As you have heard, we are committed to growing our collection at the Gennadios Library. Tonight, we invite you to join us in this effort in a unique way while also paying tribute to our honoree. In our silent auction, we offer you the opportunity to contribute directly to the Curtis Runnels Acquisition Fund. The library, with assistance from experts like Professor Runnels, will use these funds to purchase rare books, manuscripts, and artifacts from the medieval, Renaissance, and early modern eras, all of which will enhance our collection. Anyone donating to this fund will receive exclusive news on future purchases and thus become an engaged partner in expanding the Gennadios collection. Tonight, you will also see other opportunities for direct programmatic support. These opportunities include 3 additional full-year academic fellowships to our regular program, the Scarborough Fellowship, an initiative to diversify our student population, and the Wiener Lab, where you can support the scientific work of the Faliron Project. We want to thank you tonight for your participation, for your generosity, and for your steadfast support.
My name is John Camp, and I direct the excavations in the Athenian Agora. In recent years, we have been working quite energetically in order to update our archival system. This began when David Packard suggested that we should digitize our records and make them more available online. And so that was our first goal, thanks to his suggestion and the Packard Humanities Institute, which supported it. And at about the same time, one of our students, Bruce Hartzler, came on 2 trips to Turkey with me. And as we talked about what he was doing, the project he'd made up for himself, I wondered if he might be the right person to examine our digital future at the Agora. And so I invited him to spend a summer without any real task except to look at the record system, to look at the records that we had. And the first thing he did for us was to take our old excavation notebooks. And we have about 1,000 of them with 200 pages each, so 20,000 pages of notes. We digitized them, and then he developed a program where they could be searched by date, by location, by grid reference, by elevation above sea level, in a way that allowed you to get right to which one of these 1,000 notebooks you wanted to know something about. And then he also, on his own, developed a system going forward where the supervisors in the field would be able to have access to those records and at the same time to put in their own records directly off of laptops or, for a while, Palm Pilots or other electronic means. Therefore, allowing them both to see what had been done and making sure that the new material would go in a form that was readily recognizable and usable with the existing system.
John Camp has a saying that he says, the only thing that's changed since the past is the technology. And this is a very interesting perspective for me, because as technology improves, and it's on an exponential rate now, how things are changing every year, it becomes more and more important to kind of use this technology as a way of augmenting the work we've done in the past. So, for example, in the Agora, we were able to digitize all the archival material, and this is material that goes back to the 1930s when they started the excavation there. In Corinth, they started in the 1890s, so between us we have about 200 years of excavation data that we're working on digitizing and making available for scholars to use and for other purposes. We've also done a lot of work with recording, using technology for recording in the field. We developed the iDig program at the Agora, which allows us to be out in the field and record the data as we excavate it, while simultaneously linking into the archival records to give you more of a sense of what's happening there. So when you're out in the field digging, this is the moment when you are most aware of what's going on and you're most engaged with the ground. And the more information we can provide to people while they're in that state, while they're in the field digging, the more informed their practice will be. And so the idea is with places like the Wiener Lab to do scientific analysis on material and to feed that back to the excavators in real time, to provide access to the archival materials so someone can be digging in an area and instantly see what excavations happened in the past and what was just above the levels that they were digging. This use of technology, say, to improve the awareness of what's happening as you work is profound in my experience, what we've been able to achieve here. In terms of public awareness, we've been working on creating webinars this past year, and so far we've had over 300,000 people watch these. We have filming going on, we have podcasts that we're working on to create, and we have a long history of trying to provide public access to our information. One of the things we've been working on recently is the planning for creation of a digital humanities center at the school. And this is a real opportunity now. We're mainly focusing on 4 different aspects, say, of the uses of technology. And these are digital scholarship, training programs for our students, and innovative technology, as well as public awareness and education. So because we have so many people coming to the school with their own data, their own projects, and these people are generally focused on their field of study, which in the American school has to do with Hellenic culture and the history and the archaeology of this country. And these people are not the most technically skilled people in their discipline. So there's a strong need to have a support system in place that will allow these scholars to work on their material and spend most of their time doing what they're good at, which is analyzing the material, and not get bogged down in trying to wrestle with the technology that's required for them to do their studies. So the purpose of the Digital Center is really to create experiences, to share knowledge, and to use technology to bring the past to life.
Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you really got a sense tonight of what the American School of Classical Studies is all about. Tonight, on behalf of the Board of Trustees and the entire community of the American School, which we consider a big family, we want to wish a happy retirement to our publications production manager, Sarah Figuera, who after 40 years at the American School is retiring. Sarah, we thank you for your love and service to our school and for your significant contributions over these many years. Before we continue with our breakout sessions, I want to thank all of you who have supported this gala and our silent auction. I'm also proud to announce that we are very much looking forward to gathering in person next year for our gala on Thursday, May 12th, 2022 at Gotham Hall in New York City. That night, we will be honoring and presenting the Athens Prize to Edward Cohen for his outstanding contributions to the study of ancient Greece. We hope to see you there.
As we launch into our breakout sessions, I want to remind all of you that the silent auction will be open until noon Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. So please keep bidding, and please don't forget about the direct program support. At this time, you can join one of our live breakout sessions by clicking on the screen. The 5 sessions that we have available for you tonight are a chance to meet our honoree, Curtis Runnels, the history of the American school, innovative technology, the Wiener Laboratory for Archaeological Science, and finally, we've set up a wonderful alumni reunion. We want to thank you for joining us and hope to see you in person next year.